If you would like to learn more about us, we invite you to visit our website at shamansdirectory.com, where you can sign up for our monthly newsletter. And if you're a social media person, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all at Shamans Directory. It is our hope that all of our offerings at Shamans Directory will inspire you to explore the earth-based traditions of the world and to add shamanic earth-based healing to your regular health and well-being routine. Before I introduce them, I'll just say hello and welcome to Jay and Sweetie Bird. If you guys want to just say hi to let people know you're here, I think you can unmute yourself.
There we go.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for taking the time to listen to us. Things that we're going to share and think about and try and make sense of how we see things.
Great. So thanks for being here, both of you. I'm going to do a little bit more of an introduction to Jay and Sweetie. So I always feel like it's such a gift to be able to introduce our guests here today to the members and friends of the directory and give you a sense of the really vast and varied world of earth-based wisdom that's available to us and to bring us all a little closer as a global community. So I am honored to introduce Jay and Sweetie to you today, traditional Ojibwe healers from Turtle Island, otherwise known to the rest of the world as the US and Canada. And I have known Jay and Sweetie for a couple of years now, and I have had the privilege of attending their classes, hosting them as speakers, and spending some time with them in ceremony. And each time I gain a deeper appreciation for who they are. So I am so grateful to have them here today and to be able to share them with all of you. And I want to honor each and every one of you who is here today for showing up to deepen your own walk and your own path of growth and cultural understanding and connection to the earth and spirit. So thank you all for being here today and taking time out of your weekend to spend with us. So the Ojibwe language is really beautiful, and I can say a few words, but I'm not going to introduce Jay and Sweetie in their own language. I'll let them do that. But first, let me give you a brief introduction of who they are. So Jay Bird, Thunder Days, is a Jisikan shake tent conductor. He is Bear Clan from the Batchewana First Nations of Ojibwe, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Jay Bird started attending ceremonies at the age of 4 with Batchewana First Nation and began spending his time watching and eventually sitting at the drum. In 2010, at the age of 34, the Batchewana First Nation chief and council presented him with his pipe, Seven Clouds. Shortly after, Jay inherited the Jisikan shake tent ceremony. He and Sweetie travel across Turtle Island offering these teachings and healing modalities. Sweetie Bird, Yellow Thunderbird Woman, is Thunderbird Clan from Lac du Flambeau, Wisconsin Ojibwe. She is dedicated to bringing healing through ceremonies, to keeping Ojibwe ceremonies alive and in motion, and following the path of her ancestors, learning the ceremonies, the Ojibwe way of life, and how to walk as an Anishinaabe Kwe, a traditional Anishinaabe woman, is her journey. There are no degrees in Ojibwe ceremonies, only knowledge to gain, healing to offer, and teachings to share guided by Creator. Jay and Sweetie are traditionally married and a team. Since 2018, they have traveled together, assisting people at every stage of life, providing sweat lodge, Jisikan, fasting camps, one-on-one sessions, Ojibwe traditional doctoring, and sharing teachings across Ojibwe territory from Walpole Island, Ontario to Manitoba, British Columbia. In addition to their work in Native communities, Jay and Sweetie offer online courses offering teachings on life through an Ojibwe lens, and offer one-on-one sessions in person or on Zoom to anyone genuinely seeking healing and support. They also note that they share their own experience as Ojibwe people and that other traditions and languages may vary. So thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. You know, that section, then when you were describing Sweetie about no degrees, that was awesome. That, that's an awesome thing to put in, to mention. You know, we do that. We segregate ourselves into sections or places, and to say that, that's a statement. That's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just wanted to mention that. So we'll start by just the beginning for both of us. You know, this was not a life that we had planned or we had thought, you know, I'm going to do this. I want to be a traditional healer. I want to be a spiritual person. Both of us didn't have that thought. You know, it wasn't something that we weren't sponges that were, hey, I'm going to go and do this and I'm going to be known as this. That wasn't the case for both of us. You know, it happened at different times in our lives for us, but you know, we were both always exposed to cultural stuff. It was always around in our communities. You know, for me, you know, from the age of 4, it was drum nights. You know, in my community, once a week, you know, they would have like a drum night where the older guys would go and sing, and I would just go and hang out. And it was something that just was different than anything else I did. You know, playing with my friends or riding my bicycle, it was different. It felt like something that was a part of me that I couldn't explain, and it was comfortable. So I started going to that, and then through that I met someone who, you know, remained in a large portion of my life as a teacher. He was on that drum, and you know, through times in my life, like I always, you know, I wasn't hardcore ceremony all my life, but I did do the bare essentials at various times. You know, like in my teens, I did fasting, my late teens, you know, and I sang on a drum, but it wasn't like I was real heavy into the spiritual stuff. It was just kind of, you know what, it was my friends. My friends and I were hanging out and we were all around this stuff, so we were kind of did it together as a group. That was my, you know, where I was comfortable with my friends. So it wasn't like I was, I don't know, on a mission to be something. I wasn't. It was interesting and I enjoyed it and it was fun. And, you know, at certain points and times in my life, there was more, other times there was less, you know, but it was always there. And, you know, I always respected our traditional ways. You know, I grew up knowing that it's something very special, and sometimes maybe I shouldn't be around this, or other times, hey, I need to be around this. That's kind of my understanding of when I was younger. And, you know, after 2010, it became my life, and it's all my life has been now. And it's comfortable, and, you know, for the most part, we're happy, and we enjoy what we do, and it's just our normal everyday. You know, it's not like we go away on a weekend and we're doing ceremony in a community and then we're all traditional and then we go home and then we're just back to our normal lives. It's not like that. It doesn't stop for us. It's 24/7 every day. It's
It's a way of life.
yeah, it's how we live. It doesn't change. It doesn't stop. It doesn't slow down. It's just always. You know, so for us, it's not okay. I got to put my ribbon shirt on and all my stuff, and then make a big, you know,
So,
show. It's just all the time. It's just always like that. Yeah. And some people, that know us understand that, you know, like I'm probably different than most you would think of traditional Ojibwe people. Like I'll go to ceremony and I'm wearing the same clothes that I'd be wearing on the weekend when I'm working in the garage. Like there's no change. Same, Sweetie has a dress she puts on, a ceremonial dress at ceremonies, mostly because it's protocol. It's not like she wears it all the time. But, we're ourselves and who we are, and we're comfortable in our own skin. And I don't need people to know or show them who I am or where I am or what I'm doing or what I know. It's, if they wanna know that stuff, then they'll make the effort, or we'll have a relationship, and then they'll know. But it's not my identity per se. Like I don't want to be known as, oh, he knows all this stuff and he does all these things, and it's just me, you know, Jay Bird, a human being. Same with my wife. She's just sweetie, a good person, and that's who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, growing up, my mom always did her best to make sure that we had some type of knowledge and exposure to ceremonies, our language, and even, well, I would still call it a ceremony. When we put our asema out, our tobacco, that was a big thing. And to honor our Anishinaabe names. So she always tried helping my brother and I be exposed to that type of thing as much as she could. Growing up, it was a little difficult for me to, I guess, navigate between our traditional and ceremonial ways and then having to go to, this public school where we're taught different in history. So for me, there was a lot of conflict and kind of not sure who I really was as an Ojibwe. I didn't even know what that really meant. Because there was, in my high school, there was a lot of racism. So it affected me and it impacted me in a big way. And to trying to figure out who I was and understand these two different ways of lives and how to navigate that. But my mom always did a very good job of making sure when I was home I understood, because I would have questions for her. And she'd put it in such a good way in understanding on how to walk in both of those worlds. And I carry those teachings with me to this day. And it's always good reminders, especially living this way of life. And it actually came so naturally after, Jay and I met and got married and stuff, and we both kind of just walked this way together.
We grew.
Yeah, and it's just such a natural thing how we're living now, and our children, who are homeschooled, and this is the only life they know, is our way of life, and they're learning in a gentle way how to walk in both worlds, like I had struggled with in my younger years, but they're learning that respect and that love and kindness for all people. So I think that's a pretty awesome experience to be living through and still learning, as we walk this path.
Yeah, for me, when I was younger, it was more like it was the same type of experiences outside of our community. It was a lot of racism. We were made to feel different than and unwelcome in town. which it was a little different effect for me. It made me more like a rebellious thinking of, hey, I want to know more about this stuff, that why they don't like me. I want to know more about our history, our culture, our spiritual stuff, our who we are, and what. So I know more things than what people are saying to me. This was kind of my thinking that got me more interested in who I am, and not in a negative way, but it fueled that part of me where I made an effort to be aware of things, listen more. Like my grandparents raised my sister and I for all of our childhood, pretty much, because of alcoholism and drug abuse in my immediate family with my mother. And they didn't speak English. They were 100% Ojibwe fluent speakers. So, I learned the language like that. I can understand Ojibwe really well, but I'm not a fluent speaker. And it doesn't flow nice like fluent speakers when they talk. There's how they spoke was different. Even then, a lot of speakers today, it's a learned um, language, because it's almost gone in mostly every community today. A lot of it is educated, whereas my grandparents, it was learned at home. So the way that the words were put together, the language is different than how it's learned today, because we're learning with an English thinking. Whereas those old people speak differently because the thinking is different in the language, and I learned like that, and I understand our language like that, which is a blessing, a blessing where when Sweetie and I go to communities, I always gravitate to others there because I just enjoy listening to them talk. Even though I'm not fluent back, most of them all speak English. But they'll speak Ojibwe to us, and then we answer back in English with some words, mix it up. But we always seem to make friends with elders, who are in a good place, I should say, in a good mind frame. We always gravitate, or they gravitate to us. We always find each other everywhere we go. Because older people are it's like an energy, when they say something, when we laugh, it's at the right time because of how they're speaking. Or when they say something, our reaction is exactly how they're speaking. And even for them, we hear from a lot of elders that they don't see that or feel that a lot because it's been a long time because there's not many people around anymore that can communicate that way. So, I mean, the dialects are different in a lot of the communities, but the feeling of the language is the same no matter where we go. And we get that part of it. A lot of times we'll be talking to an elder, and then I'll look at Sweetie about changing the word or how do I, which one to use. She's really good at that. Discerning words and the meanings and the slight changes in pronunciation now. It changes the feeling of the word, not the meaning. It changes the feeling of the word, and she knows that stuff. This is pretty awesome. Yeah, I feel like I'm just rambling off into somewhere else.
Oh, it's good information.
Yeah. Okay. Next thing.
Yeah, we're talking about language and the feeling in our language, Anishinaabe. And one that I think all of us agree on to speak about was truth, Dipwaywen. And the truth in English is more about like facts. But when we say this in Ojibwe, it's sometimes hard to translate Ojibwe into English because there's concepts in Ojibwe that aren't in English and vice versa. And when we're speaking Ojibwe, we're speaking from our heart. So that feeling, when we speak that, we're speaking that feeling into existence and sharing that with the person or people we're talking to, or even creation when we're praying. And so the boy when they is Ode our hearts. That boy is the breath. So it's referring to the breath of our heart. When we're speaking from our heart, our feelings, and what's coming out, and what we're sharing with life around us.
Right. Just to add. So when I mentioned about speaking to elders in different communities, different places, it's an emotional conversation right off the bat. It's not an exchange of information or figures or facts or, information. It's an emotional conversation right away, and that strikes you because it's not common anymore. That's exactly what I was mentioning earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that truth is a good one to talk about, especially in bridging communities and people. There's a lot of differences out there. So even spiritually, bridging those differences. When we travel to different communities, we don't, what's the word? I don't want to say segregate, but we don't judge people on what, how, or who they believe in. As long as, we're all touched by Creator. We all have a light in us. And in our language, when we speak, we're always referring to a light, and that's the life in us and in creation, and that's what we talk about. That's who we talk to, is that light. So in ceremony, that's spiritually, that's where we're at, is we see people's lights. We're not judging an outward appearance or what or who you believe in. People come and they need help, and that's what we're there to do, is help those lights, help your light.
Right. So just thinking about that. We're taught, in our Western world to, when you have a new relationship, when you're meeting somebody, you need to be guarded. Okay? You gotta keep yourself safe. You gotta guard yourself and only show a certain amount of things, because if you're open, you could be hurt. We do that. We're taught that. That's how we need to be. And only just show a little bit at a time until we feel we're safe. And then we can, when we speak in Ojibwe, it's nothing but emotions. There is no guard. It's only feeling and sharing. It's a totally different approach, a totally different way of starting a relationship with someone new. Like when we say, even our basic first greeting, everyone knows Anin, hi. Today, like in the Ojibwe dictionary today on a book, the translation is hello. Basic greeting it says, but it's not. Anin, is light. Nin is me. I see your light. I recognize your spirit, your life. Very emotional. Just one word. I see your spirit light in your life in you. I recognize that. Meaning, holy man. One word. Very deep and emotional right away. Imagine a whole paragraph of stuff like that. It's just very connected right away on an emotional level, which opens the door for spiritual understandings to happen in a good way, because you're emotionally connecting with somebody without any barriers that we're placing in the way, which is sadly how a lot of us are. We teach ourselves to do that because we don't want to be hurt by someone, or be, mistrust, that kind of stuff, or misled. We think of negative things first instead of just the beautiful thing of meeting some person's energy or light.
Yeah, another one is bourgeois. Um, we in a lot of Ojibwe communities, that's their welcoming. Is bourgeois. You'll see it at the hotels, or if you're walking into the store, they'll have it posted bourgeois, and they're saying like welcome, come in. Um, bourgeois, what that is referring to, or what that's saying on an emotional level, that bu is that breath of life. Je is a spark of life. And what that's referring to is asking, do you speak of life? And so when you say that back, if I say bourgeois and Jay says bourgeois back, you're both coming into an agreement that yes, we both speak of life. We're here speaking of life. And that's what the deeper meaning to that is. It's more than just a welcome. It's welcoming your life into this space here.
So, with all that being said, Sweetie and I, through our experiences as Ojibwe people, you know, ceremonies and not ceremonies, just our living, we're at a place now where we understand that, you know, spirits, they don't, they just see us as a light, like Sweetie was saying. They see us as a light, but that's without limits. They're only concerned with what we do here and to complete our journey back to the spirit world. You know, there is no segregation. There is no limits. There is no, we do that as people. You're white, you're here. Or you're Ojibwe and you're here and you can't mix. We do that. Spirits don't tell us to do that. We do that to ourselves. You know, like, so we're at a place now, it doesn't matter anything on the outside. Spirits from the spirit world only see us as an extension of Creator, a light, and that, they need help sometimes. And we need to help them so that they gain the knowledge and understanding why we're here on earth. I have to learn these feelings. I have to learn, to be the best person I can be and gain that experience to bring back to the spirit world is the reason why we're here. Things that we need to do here to help others, basically. And then we get to go back. Being here on earth is only a learning experience for us because we were already spirit before we came here. To really appreciate the spirit world and how it is, we have to experience here for a short time. And all, so, I heard a guy say one time, for us as a Ojibwe, we don't believe in hell. He said, hell is here now, today. We're away from our ancestors. We're away from our loved ones. We're away from the Creator. We have to be here, and we have to go through all these experiences. A lot of them are not hard, are not fun. Death and all the things that come along with being here on Earth. Experiencing feelings that are not good. But and that's the challenge. What do we do with those things? Do we use them to become better and help others? Or do we let them bring us down and get sick and not do anything? That's the challenge for all of us, every one of us here on earth. That's the thing. Are we going to let that get in our way of helping people and doing what we're supposed to do? Or are we just going to, move forward and not know what's happening in the future, but go ahead anyway and do the best we can every day and then learn from that and help someone else? When that old guy said that to me, I'm like, it made a lot of sense to me. That is really, that's how it is here. Imagine going to a place that's even worse than this. Man, I mean, if that's the case, then why even bother, But, you know, so like everyone else, Sweetie and I have our challenges and our hard times. And there has been a few where we have to we look at each other and what do we do next? As hard as it is, we'll just keep moving forward and do the best we can and learn from this. Why did this happen? And how is that going to help us later? As horrible as this experience is. But we'll figure it out as we move along. And we always do. And then life seems better.
I think the biggest part of that is finding our balance in all those struggles. And even acknowledging when things are great and good and smooth for a little bit, to acknowledge and be grateful for all the small things that come with all the struggles in life. And I think that the biggest part is trusting and believing blindly in the Money Duke, the spirits, that they see us doing our best and they're here to help, and that we stay connected and grounded, and that we keep moving forward and take these lessons in life and these experiences and be able to share them, so that we can help people, and not even just people, but in our own way, helping the spirits, are showing our gratefulness to the spirits, and also life around us, like, the animals, the trees, things like that. We're always in gratitude of the medicines that they offer, of the relationships that we have with the animals, and even the ground we walk on. I was taking Ojibwe language courses, because I'm not fluent in speaking. And I was trying so hard, it didn't work out for me. It was more difficult than I thought it would be. It did help me a little bit, but my teacher had mentioned, because someone asked, how do you say sacred in Ojibwe? And he kind of chuckled and he said, I'm not laughing out of disrespect. He said, but I had asked my mom this. And he said, if you ask a fluent first language speaker how to say sacred, they would give you the same reaction, because in our language and in our culture, we are all equal. There is no one or nothing better than anyone or anything. We're all equal. So all life is sacred. So there was no need to put that label on things. Later in life, that word came, only because we had to hang on to all that we had, because there was a time where that stuff was being taken from us. But now, like in our generation and where we're at now, we're able to speak and live our way of life as Ojibwe, and have our ceremonies and share that healing with others. But yeah, I think the balance in all of life experience is a big thing, and being able to do that together and with our family is a pretty big thing.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm thinking about something and I'm not sure how to word it. We're talking about like life experiences like that. And, a lot of us, all of us, I think at some point, we could all say, why did this awful thing happen? How could, how could God let this happen? How could God let these awful things happen to me or someone I know or something I see on the news? How is that possible? And why does that happen? These terrible things that people do to each other. And so just a little back story on us. My sister, when I first went back home, like when uh, they were mentioning earlier, 34 is when I started getting serious with my stuff. I wasn't home a month, and I was staying with my sister. And her and her husband at the time were splitting up. And when he had left, my niece, she was uh, 13 or 14 at the time, came forward and talked about sexual abuse from the husband. And it just, my sister's world just stopped right there at that moment. And here I am, just showed up, and I'm barely keeping myself together, you know. So the both of us worlds are rocked, and we don't know what to do. How do we deal with this? And why is this awful happening? My life's falling apart. I'm trying to get a sense of what to do. And then this happens with my sister. She's always worked hard all her life in the financial district to provide the best life she could for her family. Good person, my sister, always has been. And this is going on. And now my daughter, might as well say my daughter, my niece, shares this. And now, we call the police and we start going through the process of that and what's going to happen and how do we navigate this and how do we deal with these feelings and why is this happening to us? This is so hard and hurtful. And, talking about why things like this happen in the universe or on Earth to us, through the next decade from that, my sister and the family went through that whole process and I was there as a support. That's all I could do. I shared whatever I could spiritually, as to just help. And, I watched my sister's, she changed a little bit, through time where she became passionate about the family and how the family deals with sexual assault, sexual abuse in the family and like that. That became something that she constantly talked about because we were living it, you know. So it wasn't just my niece, it was my nephew, my nephews, and her, and everyone in the family that were hurt and had to experience this whole thing as a group. But the services were only, that were accessible for her, were only for my niece and her trauma, no one else. There wasn't anything available, and nobody had any experience to help us, a group therapy session once in a while, but it wasn't anything that addressed that specific need where we were. In Batchewana on our reserve, or even in town there was no town services either. So, you know, 10 years, 11 years later, my she's a corporate person now for a banking institute set for life. And she leaves that. She decided to leave that world, and she started a nonprofit organization to provide services, for families of victims of sexual assault, specifically geared for that. And that's her calling now, and that's her life thing. She changed her whole living. And, in the last 11, 12 years, I've watched my sister. She's my sister again. Like, she's laughing and she's happy and she's doing stuff and she has time. And, there's people that are coming in there now and getting help as a family unit. So everyone's addressing. And so here comes the part about the choice. Do we heal or do we not heal? Do we get better and help others or we don't? So that all happened. My niece decided not to. Her choice was to just, she's developed mental issues, medication. She's numb all the time from that. She's choosing that more than to deal with what happened. And there's nothing that any of us could do. We love her so much. But she's choosing that way. So here's my sister and the rest of us doing this, this nonprofit helping lots of people with the same situation. But our niece is still in a place where she doesn't want to. And her life is going that way now. And we can't do anything about it other than just wait and be there if she decides to come back. And it's tough watching her degrade like that. Not so much, she's not in alcoholism or drug addiction, it's just her mental state is changing so much because she's not healing, choosing not to. But on the other hand, this other thing is happening now, changing other people's lives, and that's why we went through all that. There's a plan that we just stumble through life and figure out. Some of us do what we're meant to do. We take the cues that life is showing us, as hard as they are sometimes, and we do it. I can't imagine the thought, a moment in my sister's life where she's like, I'm going to lead this secure way of life to something that I don't know and do this. How hard that was for her, but she did it, and it was her faith in the spirits and how whatever they're gonna do with her, and that should be okay, And for me, my situation wasn't quite that severe when I started, when I made my 100% commitment to do this. I came to a point in my life where how I was living just wasn't working anymore. It wasn't fun. I was in the trucking business for over, decade and a half. And I was doing really well. I had workers. I had multiple trucks, trailers. I was doing everything I wanted to do, and I was happy. And then it started to become not happy. And then it became where I just was not living well and I wasn't feeling good and I wasn't just making good decisions. I started destroying myself and my family, and my kids didn't know me. I was never home. Work became the number one priority of my life. And it all stopped one day. It just, that's enough. You're done with this. And that's when I went home to my sisters, and I needed to do things around there to keep my mind busy, because this is going on at my sister's house with this whole thing with my niece. And I'm dealing with who am I and what am I going to do and what's my identity. And because I was always, J Bird Trucking, my company. That was my identity and who I wanted to be and people to know me as, you know, that I was a success, doing okay. And that was gone. And now I had to just be me, like my own person. And, my family there was always supportive of me on my reserve. So I would spend time with my family, visiting my uncles, visiting my cousin. You know, my cousin Mike he's one of the sweat lodge guys for the community. Everyone goes to see him. They want to do a sweat lodge or help with a ceremony. So I started spending a lot of time with him, and he would find jobs to keep me busy, keep my mind busy, and it just went on like that. And for that year, I was there all the time. I was his helper, you know. Not because I wanted to learn or earn money or anything. I just needed to keep my mind busy because I was going to go crazy in my own thoughts. I did not have the skills to manage my own thinking in a positive way. I just didn't know how. And I, one day, I decided to go to the museum in town, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, because I had seen an item there when I was a kid. It was a pipe. I'd seen it when I was 7, 8 years old, and it struck me when I was a kid. It struck me so much I felt weird, and I went home, and like I was saying earlier, I lived with my grandparents. So I told my grandma about this, and she asked me in Ojibwe, what did it look like? So I explained it to her. It was black, and it had inlay, lead, silver stuff, I said, on it. And then she's like, oh yeah. She remembered, and she's like, that was our relative's pipe. That belonged to our relative. And that's all she said. And that was good enough for me. At the time, I was 7. Okay, that's where it is and who it was, and that's why I feel like that. And then no more questions. I just went about my playing as a kid. And I remembered that this one day. So I decided to go back up to the museum and see if this item is still there at 34, going on 35. So I drive up there. It's like a half an hour into town. I go there and I go upstairs where the Ojibwe section was in the museum, and it's still there. It's still in the same place, same case, same everything's the same. And I'm looking at this pipe, and I start to cry, and I just feel like I'm losing my, I don't know, without saying a swear word, I don't know, I'm losing my stuff. I'm losing my poop. And I'm thinking, I'm having my midlife breakdown. I'm having a breakdown. That's what this is, an emotional breakdown. This is it. This must be it. And I start thinking about everything I'm doing wrong in life, and now I'm feeling sorry for myself. And I'm just thinking about negative things about me. And I thought seeing this item just stirred up that stuff on me. It's me, had nothing to do with this pipe, I thought. So I left, and the curator seen me leaving all upset. And I go back to Batchewana, and I go to the health center to talk to a counselor because I just could not make myself feel better. I could not make myself mentally feel comfortable with this whole what's happening. I needed somebody to tell me how to feel better because I couldn't. And I was used to that. Someone telling me how to think, someone telling me how to feel. That's how we grew up, even in Western living, right? So the guy I normally see wasn't there. And oh man, so this other lady was there who I known most of my life. Not somebody I would normally go ask for traditional advice from, but it was better than nothing. So I got my tobacco, my Asema, as a gift, to give her before I asked stuff like that. And I go in her office and I give it to her and I start telling her about my grandma telling me about this old pipe. And then I went up to the museum and I seen it again and I'm all upset. And what do I do? How do I feel better? She said, she didn't address any of that stuff. All she said was, those items don't belong to, you know, our neighbors, our Western neighbors. They belong to us. And it wouldn't be wrong if he went there and did a heist. And I didn't know what to say to that. There was no words. I knew that was wrong right off the bat. I was like, whoa. So then I just said thank you. I said, Miigwech, and I left. And I went out and I sat in my car and I thought, man, I still don't feel right. I'm not feeling better yet. I don't know how. So I went and bought some more tobacco with the last of my money. And I went right back up there that afternoon. My intention was to give it to the curator because he had seen me upset. So I walked in the museum front doors and he was standing there like he was waiting for me. It was weird, non-native fellow. And I went to talk to him. I went to give him that tobacco I bought. And when I went to speak, tears were coming down. I couldn't even talk. I was just an emotional wreck. So he accepted my tobacco. He knew that protocol, being around Native people in the community. He took my tobacco in his left hand and he's like, come on in my office and, let's talk. So we go in there and I'm feeling a little relieved. And I told him what happened at the health center. I went there because I needed help. I'm all a big mess. And this item upstairs kind of stirred this whole thing up for me. And I need help with this. And I said, the person I went to talk to, I said I should steal this. And his eyes look all big and he's like, well, you just ruined your chances of that. And the only thing in my mind I could think of was to say to him, I think you should take it out of the case and lock it in the back so nothing happens. These people are going to be talking about this. Something might happen to it now. They know it's here. I brought attention, whatever. I said you should take it out and lock it away in the back. And when I said that, I felt immediate loss. Like I'd lost something, a friend, a relative. Like there was just a black hole inside of me all of a sudden and it hurt really bad. Like someone passed away right then. But that's the only thing I could do. I had no power of anything. To make the decision that, hey, I'll never see this pipe again, but it's going to be okay. And I can do that to help it. I'll do that. It's okay. Right? So that's what I said to the guy, and it hurt. Why? I don't know, because I had no connection to this pipe. Never touched it. I didn't, hardly know anything about it. Other than just what my grandma said. There was nothing special, I thought. On a physical level, absolutely zero. So he said, we've got index cards with information about this, the history. Let me tell you, and he gets up to go and get the information, and I said, no, I don't even want to know. It's just gonna upset me more. And I got up and I walked out of his office. And I go and sit in my car on the street, and I'm thinking, why is this so hard? I came home to get my life together and be well and learn what am I supposed to do with myself. And I feel like this. I feel worse than when I came home. Like, I'm like, I don't want anything to do with traditional stuff. I don't want anything to do with spiritual stuff because this is awful. I don't want to be like this. I just want to go back to Southern Ontario and go back trucking. Something that I know well, something I'm good at, something I feel good about, and be happy again, because this is not it for me. Like, it's just, since I got home there, it was just problem after problem, major issue. Holy man, it was awful. So, my sister's going through her thing at the time, and I'm helping with her. And Mike, my cousin's calling me, help me with Sweat Lodge rocks, or help me, we're fixing up my sacred area. Like, just keeping me busy. And I didn't have much money either then. So I was gonna save up money and then go back down south and start trucking again. And it turned into a month. And I was for sure in my mind, I'm out of here. As soon as I'm able, I'm gone. And then it was 2 months, and it's 3 months, and I'm helping Mike all this time. People are coming for sweat lodges and stuff, and I'm helping them get ready and going in there with them and singing and doing whatever. And I'm helping my sister, with the kids while she's getting therapy or, doing her things, trying to help my niece. And I was at Mike's one afternoon. We're getting ready for a ceremony, and his phone rings. His house phone. And he answers it, and it's Chief and Council on the phone. And they're looking for me. They said, we're in a meeting right now at the band office, and we want him to come over. We want to talk to him. He's like, okay, how long is it going to be? Because we got rocks in the fire. There's people here. How long is it going to be? And they're like, just send him over. And he's okay. So he hung up the phone. He said, hey, Chief and Council's in meeting right now, and they want to see you. What did you do? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't apply for any jobs or program things. I don't know why they want to talk to me. And right away, I'm thinking I'm in trouble for something. Somebody brought something to them I did, or I don't know. I'm trying to think of all the things I did that I could be in trouble for, and I can't figure out which one it might be. I don't know. And so I drive over there. It's like a block and a half away, and I go in the band office and I walk in council chambers. I open the doors and I walk right in there, and my chief, Dean Sayers, he has this hat that he wears. It's birch bark, and it has all eagle feathers, and it has his clan crane thing on it. It's awesome. It's a chief hat. He wears that in ceremony or when he's doing, ceremony things or speaking sometimes. And he had that on. And I'm thinking, I walked in there, why is he wearing his chief hat in a council meeting for? And he looked at me and he stood up. And when he stood up, I looked on the table, and that pint was sitting there on the table. And he said, get yourself ready. Make your pipe bank. You're going to go fasting for 4 days up at, Agua at the pictographs, our fasting area, our traditional place. You're going to go fasting for 4 days. And when you're done that, then you're going to start helping us with this. We need that. And I was just staring at that pipe like, holy, I thought it was gone forever. And I just said, okay. I said, okay. And they're all watching me. Council was there. They were all there, 13 or 14 of them sitting at the table, and they're all looking at me. And I said, all right. Okay, I will. And then he's like, okay, get out of here. We got other things to do. And it was over just like that. And I was like, wow, like what is going on here? How, what? And I went right to my sister's, Mike's still sitting by the fire over there, all them rocks in there. But I went to my sister's first and I told her what happened. And she just started to cry and she grabbed me, she hugged me so tight. And she said, I'm so proud of you. So, what had happened that day that I was there, and I talked to that guy, Kim Forbes, the curator. I left all upset. He called Dean. They knew each other because of land claim information and sharing information. They had a good relationship. And he called Dean and he said, hey, this young guy was in here all upset about a pipe upstairs. Gold tooth. He said, oh, that's Jay Bird. He knew me because of my... Right away, he didn't have to say what I looked like. So yeah, he's from here. His family has a connection to that pipe up there. He knew that from his parents, his family. So they started a repatriation because it was property of Ontario government. So they started the repatriation of it. Batchewana First Nation and the government. But unbeknownst to me, I had no idea. So 3 months, I'm moping around there, ready to just get out. And I'm still hanging around helping, people. Not really, I don't know. I wanted to, but I was still also stuck too, I think. But they were watching me. They were watching my character. What's he gonna do? They knew how I felt and what had happened. Everyone there did. What's he gonna do? Is he gonna take off or is he gonna stay? Is he gonna run from all this stuff? And if he does, then he's not the guy. Then I stayed. And they watched quietly, without nobody helping me. I had to go through all that on my own, heal from that emotional stuff on my own. And I did. And I made it. I made it through. And I was just concerned with just helping people at the time with how I could, very little. And that was the beginning for me. That's how I made that commitment for my community, saying I'll do this. And then it turned out to this now, 15 years later. Now Sweetie's helping just as much with what we do. But that was the start. I have him right here. I always have him when we do these. That's him right there. So, Nisha Soyana Gwadun is his name. He's 415 years old. He was made in my family in 1610. First contact for where I'm from was 1638. So there's a brief period of time where it was strictly Ojibwe when he was being used. The name of the person who made him was Benzadanam, my relative, means flying star. There's been others I've recently knew their names. So there's Animki Gijagat, Thunder Day was another relative of mine. My name is Thunder Days. Another one, two people that carried this pipe before me was, how do you say that again? Walks in the thunders, then let's say a nippy one. He walks in the thunders. So one person who carried him, that meant when it's thundering out, he's traveling on the ground. He's going someplace on earth. Another one, it was one who walks along with the thunderbirds in the sky. So those were two of my different relatives. And then there's me now, Thunder Days, plural. All of our names are related in a way with that, with stars or thunders. So I know all those people who had him before me. So to add to that, a couple of years ago, Sweetie and I got a call to go to Saugeen, Manitoba. And that's a place we've never been, an Ojibwe community. A man called us one day and asked us to come and help them with shake tent. And just back up a little bit, everyone in my family, those names I just mentioned, who all carried this plant, they all did shake tent for our community. We were the ones that did that inherently. So we get a call to go to Saugeen, to bring shake tent there. So, we talked about it. And it's 4.5 hours from where we are. It's not far, and we've never been there. And hey, let's go and experience this place. So we go. We decided to go. And we went there thinking that, maybe we'll get gas money to come home and some gifts. That's it. There was no deal or anything. But we had other work at the time and we could afford it. So we said, okay, we'll go. So we went, and the guy that we talked to on the phone sounded like a younger guy. And all he told us was he was a helper in the community. So that was another thing. When we were talking, we thought, oh, well, it's probably just some grassroots thing, a small group of people at somebody's house. We're not going to make much there to get home and whatever. Because that's how we support ourselves, like ceremony stuff. That's all we do. So we go and we meet this fella, and he's old. He's an old guy. And he said, oh, we got you set up at the health center in one of the doctor's offices. Someone will be bringing you lunch. We got you at this hotel. And people that came to see us were all fluent speakers. They were all traditional people. They all had traditional questions. I mean, everyone that came there was in a good place spiritually, very knowledgeable, and very awesome with language. So the second day I said his name is Eric Kashim. I said, why are we here? Why am I here? Because I felt, we felt everyone there knows so much more than we do about things. Their understanding is just awesome. He said, oh, we just need a fresh set of eyes around here. And he said, I dreamed about you. That's why I made the effort to find you. I said, okay. That's. So we met everyone there, and we just liked everyone. Pretty much everyone, eh? The whole community, everyone that we met there was awesome. Good people. Very respectful in their community with each other. No segregation, no groups, cliques, that we've seen. Everyone was just good. So we come back a second time a couple months later. And when we were there that time, he gave me this tobacco bag. Look at this. This is it. And that is leather. It looks like gold cardboard. And this, all these threads and stuff here used to be material. It's just falling apart. He gave this to me. And he said, that belongs with your old pipe. This old bag belongs with your old pipe. He said, we've been hanging on to it for a while. And I thought, wow, that's awesome. I'm honored, to give me a gift like that. It means something to these people. So I bring it home and I'm looking at it. I have it on my bag. And I've got floral on mine also that my cousin had made for me. And the flower pattern on this, it's sitting on next to my flower pattern on my pipe. And I'm looking and I'm like, hey, that looks a lot similar. Like, there's red flower to yellow, and there's pink in there, and it goes to a yellow one on this side. Exactly, like mine. I gotta move stuff around to show this, but it's important. That's mine. My cousin did that when I was 35 years old. When Dean had told me to make my bag and get ready, this is the pipe bag that we made. And my cousin Craig, I said, here, I give him tobacco, and I said, can you make me some floral to put on there? And that's what he come up with. He's like, what do you want? I said, I don't know, just whatever. So now there's this, like that. And it's the same. So I called Eric one day. I'm like, hey, I'm getting ready to smoke my pipe, and I just noticed that the floral is very similar on this thing you gave me and what's on my bag. He said, yeah, I told you. That bag belongs with your old pipe. He's like, I literally mean that. I said, what? He said, a man from Baoting, from Batchewana First Nation, came here 300 years ago with a black pipe with lead on it and helped us in ceremony, helped us heal, helped us with a bunch of things. And when he left his bag here. He gifted us his tobacco bag. And I just, wow. My first thought was, which one was it? Which one of my relatives was there? And he said, my dad, so Eric's, age he is, his dad had it before him. And before his dad passed away, he said, don't get rid of that bag. Somebody, there's somewhere it needs to be. And just hang on to it until. So in the 70s, there's somewhere, a university came and offered him a huge bunch of money for that bag. They wanted it as an artifact, the beadwork on it. Because it's trade beads, it's French trade beads from 300 years ago. And he said, no, this has to go someplace. I can't sell it. So Eric gave that to me. When he seen this pipe, he knew where it needed to be. Knowing where I'm from. That my family had been there already, 300 years ago, with the same pipe, helping them. Like Sweetie and I were there helping them 2 years ago. So just the show. Here I thought I'm going around learning as I go, but maybe I'm just retracing steps my family have already done. Adding or fixing to things that were left. I'm learning as we go. So, it's unbelievable. Just when I think my story is unbelievable, stuff like this happens and it becomes even more unbelievable, but it's undeniable. You cannot argue these facts. It's real. And a lot of times I think, why us? How come we're in this mix? How come it's us doing this? Why isn't it somebody who's more, I don't know, gets the mold for this kind of thing. But it's Sweetie and I, traveling to these places and helping these people and not even realizing what we're walking into and things that are happening. How the spirits have had this road already planned out for us. All we gotta do is show up. Okay? Hang in there and just show up is what we've been doing. And saving lives at the same time. Even with that, sometimes it doesn't go how we think it should go, how we're helping people, but it's how the spirits want it to be. And a lot of times we don't understand it. Why is it happening like this for? It's not how I would want to do it as a person, but then we figure out later, oh, it happened like this because, and it makes sense. So this journey that Sui and I are on right now is a long journey with this, like, it's a long journey over hundreds of years. I think we're just a section. There'll be someone after me doing this, sharing him with people. It's one of the main things for us is we do not limit this to just Ojibwe people. This pipe wants to help all kinds of people. And every time we go somewhere new and meet new people or, we're always learning something. We're always learning from that person or that place that we go to. And to exclude that would be such a loss for us. And I mean people, all people here on earth. Now my concern is just missing an opportunity when someone asks us to go. Could be somewhere in Michigan. Hey, coming up here soon. Man, if I don't go there, maybe I'm gonna miss something awesome. Just because I was thinking the wrong way, or limiting myself or us and our life experience. There's something so cool that could happen there, and I don't go because, our protocol says we shouldn't do that, or, I know this teaching, and it has to be this way, and then I miss out, or I don't go where he wants to be. That's why Sweetie and I say we're sharing our experiences in this Ojibwe way of living, because we're opening our eyes and our minds to how the spirits want us to be, where they want us to be, and how they want us to be. Not what the rules here say, it has to be this way, this way, this way. If we did that, if we limited ourselves like that, we would not have been places we've been and the experiences we've had. People would not be alive, or people would not be where they are in their spiritual journey, living or non-living. It's been it's been something else, eh? And and I can't tell you how it's gonna be next week or how, or because I don't know. I'll figure it out. We'll learn together as we're there, and so we're good at seeing what's happening. We're not good at telling you, okay, if you do this and this, you're gonna be, ABC at the end. Maybe spirits have a whole bunch of twists and turns for you. I don't know, and you have to learn those twists and turns to get to the end. Yeah. That's a big long thing I just kind of went off on, but It explains our journey and how and why we're doing what we're doing. And that it's undeniable what we're doing and how we're doing it. It's an old path that we're just still carrying on.
I haven't wanted to interrupt your story, Jay, but I do want to really say thank you for sharing your story as you do. One of the things that I wrote in the description for our time together today is the idea of opening doors to our neighbors. And I feel like your willingness to share, there's so many people in this country and all across the US and Canada where is home for you and for Sweetie that don't realize that there are native communities right near where they live, or that there are still native communities that are actively engaged in preserving their languages and their traditions and are experiencing life in the way that you are. The story of your pipe is such an incredible story. I tell people all the time that, I've met healers from all around the world, and there are very few stories that are as profound and as clear and as, you know, guided by spirit as yours is. And the way that you live with your feet in two worlds, that you live in, you go to the grocery store and you're raising kids and you have your hobbies and things that you do. And then in your back pocket is this life as a healer that people to see you on the street would not realize that you've dedicated your life from being a truck driver to receiving this pipe to now dedicating your life to providing healing all across, native communities, but also now being willing to reach out through the directory and through some of the things that you're doing outside of the community. It's such a huge gift. Hey
Oh,
guys, can you hear
hi.
me?
You're back.
We lost you for a second.
Yes, you did. I apologize, everyone. I live on a little island and we just had an island-wide power outage.
Oh, wow.
So the power went out completely, but luckily the recording was still going and you guys took over and shared whatever you shared. I'm not sure where you left off. I just am wondering, have you had a chance to take any questions from anyone?
No, not yet.
Okay. And I also just want to make sure that people know, I'm sorry for the power outage, everyone. My apologies. That Jay and Sweetie have a course coming up that is starting at the end of July. It will be a 5-week course talking about all different sorts of things in Ojibwe culture. And there are many different topics that will be covered, as well as any topics that people want to know about individually. So they talk about what it is to be Anishinaabe and how uh, their community feels about how they fit into creation, cultural protocols, what spirit wants from us in this life, understanding our own energy and how to fully express ourselves in the world. They talk about traditions that are unique to their culture, from feasting spirits, pipe ceremony, and Jisakan shake tent, which we didn't really get a chance to talk about today. Um, Sweat lodge, traditional marriage, um, the role of traditional healers. And I think that's where I got cut off
Yeah.
is when I was expressing my gratitude to Jay and Sweetie for stepping outside of their community to share their stories with us, because there's stories like this all over the world that most of us don't know. And it's a very unique opportunity to hear them and to get to know your neighbors in a way that you might not have known them before. And we hope that this helps to make people curious to reach out. And I know that in my experience, and Jay and Sweetie might correct me, but there are certain ways to approach Native communities if you're interested in learning more. And for now, I would say, until you've had a chance to spend some more time with Jay and Sweetie, I would say, if you're interested in getting to know what's happening in local communities, Native communities near you, see if you can find a website that has activities that are open to the community rather than going and trying to make an appointment or reach out yourself to meet elders or community members. Look and see if there are activities that are published. Lots of communities will have powwows or cultural events that are open to the community to get to know people better. And I really encourage you to do that. Anytime you have a chance to do that, if you're traveling or vacationing or looking around, when you're looking for things to do, look for cultural activities where you are and see if you can meet your neighbors. I feel like it's been such a gift for me to meet Jay and Sweetie and to have them be willing to share their wisdom with everyone. And I encourage you all to look for events where you can also get to know your neighbors. And yeah. So, anything you guys would like to say about your class and any questions anybody might have?
Um, our class is like how today was, only more detailed on specific things. How we speak, how we talk about stuff emotionally, how we feel. This is how our classes are. Only we're focused on specific things, but it's still how we feel about it. All of us, not just us. And we like to ask that too, right? How are you guys with last week's thing? We always ask. We want to know where people are at, spiritually or emotionally, on what we're talking about. Do we need to talk about it more, or do we need to talk about it less? Or is there something else that you need to ask about or share? That's how we do our stuff.
The other thing that Jay and Sweetie do a lot in their courses is talk about the Ojibwe language, which is a really beautiful language. And there are different vocabulary words that we learn every week that help to add to the richness of the understanding of the culture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly it. It gives us a way to think or to see. We share a few words like that, and then it changes your perspective of how what it is we're talking about. It's a good helper.
Yes. Our life experiences through an Ojibwe lens.
Mhm.
Is there anybody here who has any questions today?
Oh, look who's here, Patty.
We see a few familiar faces here. That's awesome.
If anybody would like to comment on, what day and time is the course? So the
Yeah.
course is going to be on Sundays from 11 to 1 New York time. So you'll have to transfer that over to whatever your time zone is. But it's a really beautiful way to spend a Sunday, part of your Sunday. It's a very spiritual, it feels very spiritual and grounding. I always say that it kind of resets your central nervous system to the heartbeat of the earth to spend time with Jay and Sweetie and hear them talk about their relationship to the earth and to nature and how human beings could relate to each other at our best, if we were really living without judgment and living from our hearts, how we could be in better relationship with one another.
Um, Another thing I'll add, every week people don't want to leave.
We don't like it when the courses end, so we continue to have more courses so that we can spend more time together. So Is there a closing ritual or meditation practice? Can you share what the prophecies are of this time and how to best cope?
I think just simply putting, to not miss any opportunity each of us may have and be the best person we could possibly be. And that is good enough. We don't have to be something that we never can be. Doing the best that you can today is it. And spirits know that, and they love you for that, and that's enough. That's what Creator and spirits want of us. Let's just do what we can with what we have today, the best. That's all they want from us, nothing more. Not to be something you cannot and fail.
You know, I was thinking about the closing ritual or meditation practice. Honestly, like when we do,
So,
that's our son. Sorry. I don't know that we ever um, close. I guess we always share our gratitude. We say miigwech, which in the direct translation will mean thank you. But what that is really meaning is there's a full and complete understanding, and it's acknowledging that we shared this either with each other or with the spirits. So we acknowledge and embrace that time.
we're all in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think living with that every day, it doesn't really like completely do a closing.
Yeah, it's just pause till the next day or next
Or
week.
yeah, it's just a continuation of being.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we do have like our smudging, our spiritual and physical cleansing, things like that we do.
I have a question for everyone. Was today's thing here different than what you're used to when you attend one of these? Was it different at all? Are we different in how we present?
Ah, there we go.
Autumn.
Autumn.
Hi, how are you guys?
Hi.
Long time no speak. I always love when you guys do these. Yep. I was only going to say that I first got introduced to Jay and Sweetie Bird when Shamans Directory had them do presentations. And I was always very impressed by Jay and Sweetie's story both. I've also called them independently and done work with them, and they've been extremely helpful. So
Awesome.
if anybody was looking for, anybody was looking for an you guys just got an endorsement from me, which I mean, I feel bad because I haven't called you in a while. One of the things I'll say that I noticed is your presentation itself isn't necessarily different, but I've noticed that the way that you tell it, you definitely pause a lot more and you add a lot more feeling behind your story. And so I feel like when you've added more feeling in the behind your story, it adds a lot more power to it and weight from spirit. Just my feelings on how that felt to listen this time. Yeah. So I don't know. I hope it helped.
Thank you for sharing that. And just so that everybody knows, Jay and Sweetie are, they're a married couple. They're, living their lives. And they also have this incredible life as healers that is really intense and just amazing, amazing work that they do when they're not just being parents and going to the grocery store. It's really just incredible. And what they offer in healing sessions is quite profound. So you're meeting them as human beings today, and they're also very spiritual beings as well. So uh, yeah, so we want to just thank everybody for being here. And if anybody else wants to share anything, feel free. Patricia, is that Patty? It explains fully what it means to be, okay. The presentation to me is from an Ojibwe perspective point of view. It explains fully what it means to be translated in English, miigwech, and the story continues. Bamapi.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for spending some time with us today. It's been a really wonderful treat to have you all here spending part of your Saturday with us and getting to know your neighbors a little bit more.
So in our language, there's no word for goodbye. So we say "Bamapi gigawabamin," which
Yeah.
means later in time I will see you.
Yeah, we'll see you after.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, miigwech.
And we look forward to seeing you at future Shamans Directory live events. We hope everyone has a great rest of your weekend.